I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. When I think I've learned enough, I'm like, nope, I need to do something else. I want to learn a new challenge in life. So never give up, always continue learning, and always ask questions.
Welcome to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast about women and their leadership journeys. I am Darlene Repollet, First Lady of Kean University in New Jersey, and your host. As a former corporate HR executive of 25 years, I have a passion for understanding what makes leaders thrive. We are going to speak with women leaders from government to business and everything in between to hear their stories, share their valuable lessons, and gain actionable wisdom. Today's guest is a cornerstone in the educational landscape with over 25 years of dedicated service. Michelle Velez-Jonte has navigated the K-12 space from the front of the classroom as a bilingual teacher to the helm of school leadership as a principal. Today, as the Director of Bilingual Education, ESL, World Languages, and Pre-K for Carteret Public Schools, she is the architect behind the vital start and expansion of student learning. But her impact extends beyond the district lines. As a founding member and president of the New Jersey Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, she is actively building the framework for the next generation of Latino leaders in education. Please welcome a champion for multilingual learners and a pillar of educational equity, Michelle Velez-Jonte. So, Michelle, we are so happy to have you here today, and I want to talk about your amazing and interesting career trajectory. So you've had a distinguished career in the K-12 space, and I wanted to ask you to walk us through specifically that trajectory and share the pivotal moment when you realized that your path was going to lead toward advocacy for bilingual education.
Thank you, Darlene, for having me here today. My parents came to the United States when I was a baby. I came from Puerto Rico, and I am a first-generation college student.
Okay.
Super proud of that because I came from a family that didn't have many resources, and they always instilled in me that college was a priority. And I always knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I became a bilingual teacher overnight. When I went to school, I studied elementary education, and I studied special ed. Never thinking I'd be a bilingual teacher. And I went into my interview, and I met my first principal, who I'll never forget, Mr. Gerald Chismar. And he sat there and he said, "Kiddo, do you speak Spanish?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hold on." And he left the room and he brings in another person. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And he comes back in with another lady who became my mentor. And she says, "I'm here to interview in Spanish." So I said, okay. So I started answering questions in Spanish. And the principal says to me at the time, he goes, would you be interested in teaching in bilingual? And I'm like, I think so.
Yeah.
Not really sure what that means. And he said, well, kiddo, I'll call you in 30 minutes and I'll let you know. Came home, I got the phone call, and I became a second grade bilingual teacher.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was getting into and what wonderful world this would be. And I had to go back to school. I went to Georgian Court to get my bilingual endorsement.
Okay.
And that's really when I learned about bilingual education, because when I came here, although I was a native Spanish speaker, I was in ESL classes, so I never was a true bilingual student.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to teach bilingual students, getting to teach them in their native language, getting to see them feel confident in their native language, and then using that skill set to learn English was amazing as a teacher. And at that point, I knew I really was in the right field, and this is what I wanted to do. So I was a bilingual teacher for about 10 years.
Okay.
And during that time, I did come to Kean University to get my master's in administration. And I became an administrator. And then I applied for a vice principal position at my school where I was working as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I did get that vice principal position. And I worked as a vice principal at that school for 3 years. And then I became the principal of that building, and I worked there for 10 years. So overall, I worked in one building for 19 years.
Wow.
And it really was one of the best experiences that I ever had.
Wow. That's awesome. And I love your story in terms of, when how do I want to say this? You were flexible enough to not fall apart when he stepped out of the room, brought in another interviewer, and they said, we're going to conduct this interview in Spanish. Number one, obviously you were fluent in Spanish, but that is a total shift also from special ed, what you thought you were interviewing for, and then to conduct the interview in Spanish and for them to offer you something that you totally did not expect, and you to go with the flow and accept that opportunity. That's the first lesson, I think, is that it wasn't exactly what you thought you were looking for. It was something different, but you knew it was an opportunity and you were willing to accept that opportunity, I think, is the first piece that I want to point out in terms of your trajectory. And then, you spend 10 years and you start to realize your love around this. And you talked about how seeing students, right, the learning, and I guess I would imagine kind of the light bulbs going off for them as they're starting to learn the English language, and what a reward that probably was, not only for them as learners, but for you as the teacher, and the beauty in that and how you started to fall in love with it. So I wanted to also ask you a question in terms of ultimately, yes, you came to Kean, pursued your master's, and decided to post for the vice principal position. Now, you just said you spent 19 years in the same school.
Mm-hmm.
Not even the school district, the school. So transitioning to leading the very same folks that were your peers for what, 10 years?
Yeah.
That's an interesting challenge. And I don't think it's always easy to transition to leading peers. So I wanted to ask you, what were the hurdles and triumphs in that space? And you may not have known this at the time, but ultimately, what do you think was your strategy for managing the quote unquote home team, right?
So, yes, when I became vice principal, looking back, I was trying to think about how I felt because I was a young administrator.
Okay.
I was a very young VP, and I know that there were people that had applied for that position that were veteran and that probably felt that they deserved that position over me. And I remember feeling very nervous and almost like I didn't have a voice for a little bit. So when I first became a VP, I was very reserved.
Okay.
And I was trying to be an active listener and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually spoke to someone that I worked with recently, who I currently work with again in my current district.
Okay.
And I was asking her, I'm like, remember when I became VP? I'm like, how did I change and how was I? And it was really interesting because after I spoke to her, she kind of said, you were very quiet and you were listening and you would sometimes not know what to say or what to do. Because I kind of felt like I knew these people, right? So I didn't know how to tell them certain things. And I was kind of not afraid. I wouldn't say afraid, but I was like, how do I say this now in a different tone? How do I say something to someone that I've worked with for 10 years as a coworker, and now I'm your boss?
Yes.
So it was a challenge. I kind of, looking back, I can kind of see that I probably, as a VP at the beginning, I lacked my voice.
Okay.
Because I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And as the year went on and the second year came on, I started to feel more comfortable. People, I think, started to realize that I was there to work with them because they were trying to figure me out as my new role. They were trying to figure out what kind of administrator was I going to be. And I didn't want to be their friend, but I also wanted to maintain certain relationships with people.
Yeah.
So it was a big challenge. And I feel that as I grew, I was able to address that more and more. I also did become a principal quickly after.
Mm-hmm.
So I was only VP for like 2.5 years before I became principal. So it really was a very quick transition from one to the other. And that's when I know I got my voice. When I became principal, that's when I became, okay, now I really know what I'm doing because it took me that learning period.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn. I had to learn my coworkers. I had to learn my friends. I had to learn the system at a different level. And it took some time. It's not an easy transition to come from being a teacher to being an administrator. We think it's easy when we're in school. We think it's easy when, we can take a challenge and we can do it. But when you're in those shoes, it's hard. And it takes some listening and it takes some courage to say, I don't really know what I'm doing all the time, and I need to ask for some help.
Well, I love that you said that, right? So you are cluing us into the fact that no, it wasn't easy. In the beginning, maybe you made mistakes, or maybe you had an opportunity to speak up, but you didn't because you weren't sure what your voice was. But over time that developed, right? And then the opportunity to quickly get promoted now to principal after 2.5 years. So some of that muscle, that leadership muscle, had already started to develop, right, over that 2.5 years. And then you go into a principal job and it's like, okay, now I know, now I have this. And I'm even interested in, were there specific challenges that you remember from staff or from people, and how did you navigate that? Because like you said, there were certainly folks who maybe were more senior who had interviewed for the VP job. I don't know if there was competition when you interviewed for the principal opportunity, but how did you manage any direct challenges that staff was giving you, if that situation existed?
Definitely, like the challenge was trying to have people understand that although I was someone that they were recently friends with on a personal level, right? And a teammate, as a co-teacher for many years, now I couldn't just say, yes, you can do that. Or yes, you can do this with your students, because I'm not in that role anymore. I'm in a different role.
Mm-hmm.
So having people understand that was one of my biggest challenges.
And there's a chain of command.
Yes.
And that needs to be adhered to, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered that right for you.
No, that works. So, change requires a high level of, I'll call it, professional courage. And I know when you and I spoke before, you talked about the fact that you ultimately thought the one school, the one district you were in for almost 20 years, you thought you would retire there probably.
I did.
And then something happens to draw you out of your comfort zone, right? You were faced with the decision to move into a new leadership role at a different district. And what would you say was your internal litmus test for knowing that it was the right time to make that leap?
So after being at Series School all those years, I was moved to become principal at another school in the same district. A new school that I had never really known this. I became principal of a new school in Perth Amboy.
Okay.
I was moved sometime in August, and the school year started in September. So after being at my previous school for over 19 years, I was sad. I was afraid. I was nervous, because I had known all my staff members for all these years, and I was going into a larger school with people that I didn't know a couple weeks before school started. So I went into that position, and I was very, nervous about what kind of a job I would do as a new principal in that building.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did it, I really loved that school.
Ah.
The staff in that school were amazing. I went in there and I got to know them. And I really feel that in the 1 year that I was there, I was able to make a positive difference and build relationships. But in that 1 year that I was there, I also realized I was very comfortable where I was.
Okay.
And I could probably challenge myself and do something else in life.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, yes, I probably would have been a very happy principal at that same school, and I would have retired there. And I would have missed out on some great things that have happened in the last couple of years for me.
Wow.
So when I was moved, it was a challenge, but it was actually the challenge that made me realize that I needed a change.
Yeah.
And then that's when this position came up in Carteret for a bilingual director. It was a bilingual ESL and world language director. And I thought about it and I contemplated it and I figured, why not? I can do it. If I can leave series school after 19 years and go work at patent school for 1 year, I can do anything. And that's what I did. And as sad as I was when I wrote that letter of resignation, I knew that this new position is what I needed, because where I am now is where I am meant to be.
So I love that, because you said that while you were scared to leave the school you had been at for 19 years, you did it. And you loved the new school. Imagine if you hadn't taken that first leap, right? And then not only did you love it, it became the catalyst for you to have the courage to even then leave for a brand new school district. So embedded in there is doing it through the fear, because we're never not going to be fearful, right? We're probably always going to have a little bit of fear or be scared, but doing it anyway leads to something that we might not even expect. So you loved the second school, and it gave you the courage to come to a new school district where you're, I understand, uber happy as well.
I am.
And the opportunity is even greater for you to be even more impactful in the lives of students and families. So again, I think that goes back to doing it scared anyway and having the courage to take that leap of faith.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've been blessed, because in all the positions I've had in education, I have been very fortunate to have worked with great people, great leaders, and great teams.
Mm-hmm.
Just very fortunate.
Are there certain things that you told yourself to give you the courage to make the changes?
If I can go in that one school that also lost their principal that was there for many years, because she retired after many years. So that school was also hurting because their administrator had just retired after being there for many years. If I can go in there and I can win those people over and I can handle all that workload and do a good job, I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really knew that I can do anything and I can still learn.
Yeah.
Because we get comfortable in our positions, and I knew it was time for me to also learn something new.
Spread your wings and challenge yourself more, right?
Yep.
Okay. So to that point, none of us climb higher alone. We just don't. Sometimes we might believe we do, but we don't really climb higher alone. And recognition of that fact is part of the beauty of the formation of the New Jersey Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, an organization that you are a founding member of and the current president. So looking back, what would you say is the most profound piece of advice that a mentor ever gave you, and how are you paying that forward to the next generation of educators?
So I can't remember exactly what was said to me, but I have been fortunate to work with some powerful women, one being Dr. Vivian Rodriguez. And I'll never forget when I was moving up in my role and trying to find myself. I remember her pulling me aside and her talking to me and just giving me that positive reinforcement that this is a challenge, but that I can do it. And she would tell me about her experience and how she had grown in her administration and how she believed in me and how she supported me. And I always felt very supported by Dr. Rodriguez.
Okay.
And I always remember, and I still see her on social media, and I see how well she's doing, and I seem like I still want to be like her. I still want to be as successful as she was in her educational career, because she retired, and I think she's a very well-respected woman in education. So I still want to be like her.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say she's one of the people that I always want to live up to. And then if I could think about one more mentor, is my current superintendent, Rosa Diaz, someone that I've known on a personal note for many years.
Okay.
But someone who also knew that I was at a place in my career that I needed to change. someone that knew that she had an opportunity and it is her role. I really felt that she took it as her role to give me that opportunity so that I can flourish in something new. And when I relate that back to New Jersey Alas, yes. Right? Because when New Jersey Alas was founded back in 2019, we were starting off looking for a group, a team of Latino administrators who were all becoming administrators, or that we were administrators, where we can be together, where we can network, where we can talk, and where we can support and empower one another. So when New Jersey Alas was built, when New Jersey Alas was born, let's say, we were very new. We were trying to figure out what our role would be in New Jersey with all the other education organizations. But we knew that there was a need for a place for Latino administrators to go, to network, to support, and to help each other grow. So when I think about my two mentors in life, I feel that that's what I want New Jersey Alas to be. I want it to be a place where future Latino educators can come to network, can come to grow, and to come to empower one another and to be a voice together.
I love that because that's, again, I'm going to talk about courage. That's the courage to say there's a piece missing within our education community. And so I'm going to band together with other folks and create an organization that satisfies a need that we feel is missing. And in that vein, like you said, there were two very influential people in your career, people that, you emulate and you live up to, right? And for you to be a founding member of an organization that can be that resource, offer the mentorship, offer the resources and tools for other administrators is awesome. And it sounds like that's what, you and your organization are trying to achieve.
We really are. It's really grown in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And it's really wonderful to see at our last conference how many people attended. We had a full house here at Kean University when we had our conference in November.
Okay.
And it's a great way for us to just, like you said, navigate everything that we're doing and empower one another. And that's something that I'm so proud of New Jersey Alas. And also reaching out to those high school students, because we are also supporting high school students and helping them in their college path by giving out student scholarships, especially to our minority students, because we all know that, anything can help anybody. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way for us as an organization to give back to our students.
Awesome. So, Michelle, your portfolio and your career, as we said, covers everything from pre-K to world languages. And I'm curious about your leadership style and your approach. Does it shift when you move from, say, classroom observation to conversation and consultation with a bilingual family to yet a high-level administrative meeting? Does it shift your leadership, or would you say there is a Michelle Velez-Jonte kind of core style that remains constant regardless of who's in the room and who you're interacting with?
I think my approach, my tone, who I am stays no matter what. I think that I have grown significantly in my career. Mm-hmm. Who I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as a leader continues to evolve and change. I feel very confident in when I come into a room now. Not that I didn't before, but again, I think it's something that we just develop over time. So I really feel that my emotional intelligence, the way I speak to people, the way I interact with people is the same no matter what. Yes, do we need to at times adjust ourselves because of the audience and who's in the room and who we're talking to? Yeah. There are scenarios where I speak to students that I wouldn't speak the same way that I would speak to a parent. Mm-hmm. And there are scenarios that I know when I walk into a room where my boss is, I need to know my role in that particular room.
Yes.
So I do know how to transition, but I also know how to still advocate for what I need to advocate for. I also know that I can communicate something even if it's a different opinion with my peers or even my boss because I'm able to do so in a professional way. And always staying true to who I am and what I believe in, I think is important no matter what the conversation is that I'm having with somebody.
And what would you say are some of the, you talked about development and growing, right? And being proud of kind of your evolution in educational leadership. Are there specific things that you did, specific programs that you went to, or maybe it's a combination of all of the above, and time and job too? What would you say is attributed to your growth? And I'm asking that question because I want our audience, right, to have ideas of what they can do to grow in their leadership.
So when it came to Carteret, one of the challenges or one of the growths that I really had was with my bilingual program, because when we came in there, we had small numbers that were growing really quickly. So we had scenarios where we had grades 5, 6, and 7 in one room because we only had like 9 students.
Okay.
So teachers were teaching to different levels and different languages, and teachers were just trying to figure everything out. So I came in and I was like, you know what, let's look at this bilingual program. Let's really look at this bilingual program and let's see what we have here for our kids. As our population started to grow, it was really important for me to change and shift the culture of the district teachers to help them understand the importance of teaching students in their native language and then transitioning them slowly into English. A lot of the teachers when I first came in were still teaching in full English. And although they were teaching in Spanish, they were still, all the material was in English.
Okay.
So it was about changing the culture and embracing the native language, which was something that was hard because as teachers, we're worried about state tests.
Yes.
And at times we're thinking, well, they have to learn English because they have to take the test in English. I get it. But if they understood the concept in Spanish, guess what? When they learn English, they're going to understand that concept because they already know the concept. So changing that culture and that shift was a challenge, but it was something that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this in a positive way. I'm going to take the time to talk to teachers, talk to them, get to know what their challenges are. I'm going to take them to other schools to see other programs. I'm going to include them in the process of selecting new books. I'm going to include them in the writing of the curriculums so that when we make these changes, they were not Miss Shell's changes.
Yes.
They were not the NJDOE's changes. They were our changes because we knew they were the best practice for our kids. So it was building that team, getting everyone to understand why we're making the shift, and then doing it together. And that's something that we are still evolving and doing because we currently have programs in place that we're looking at, is this the best? I'm not sure if this is the best one. So let's look at something else. And it's always including the people who are working, the teachers, in that conversation to make the change.
I think that's an important aspect to point out in terms of leadership. So, we're specifically talking about the changes you made to the language program. However, this is applicable regardless, right? So if there's a culture change, a culture shift, anything within an organization that a leader is trying to make different than what it is today, bringing the stakeholders along, gaining buy-in, and having them participate in what the future will look like, you're probably 9 times out of 10 are going to have more wins that way than, as you said, if you just did it all in a vacuum, all in the office by yourself, and then said, here you go, now implement. You're going to have more disgruntled teachers in this case, versus really utilizing them, listening to them, and having them be a part of the creation. That's an important leadership approach and distinction. And, it goes back to the question of how did you see your evolution, right, and your growth in all of that? Because you may not have done that. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. in your first principal job, you may or may not have had that.
No,
that
you're right. I actually
intuition.
I asked somebody about how was I when I first became a principal, and she's like, to be honest, I'm like, yeah, I can take it. She said you were a little short and you were a little what was the word? Curt.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, really? She goes, yeah. You would just be like, nope, not doing that. Nope, can't do that, and you would not talk and elaborate as to why a decision was being made.
Interesting.
Nowadays, I would never just say no. I'd be like, listen. The reason why this isn't going to work, it's because of this. Yeah. What do you think we can do instead?
Yeah.
But that took some learning.
Yes.
Because when I came in, I was like, I'm the principal, yay, you know. And then I didn't realize how much their input impacted me in all of my daily responsibilities in that building. So yeah, that was definitely something I would not have done September of that first year.
And I think that's beautiful because that's learning and that's growth and that's development. That we don't come into positions, especially leadership positions, overnight just knowing everything that we're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. It takes time and we learn.
So sometimes wish I can go back and be like, well, I would have maybe done something a little differently back then. But this helps me reflect sometimes. Like maybe I should reach out to somebody and be like, you know, I just want to say I was a little younger then and I've learned. Because it's important to maintain those relationships with people.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing your full stories with us and being authentic in communicating that, because we need to know we're not perfect. Even now, we should all still be growing and learning, right? And we're going to make mistakes, and there are going to be times where we may reflect and say, I could have done that differently, or I could have said something different. So thank you so much for sharing with us and as I said, being authentic and really sharing your true story. We are coming to what we like to call here at Climb Higher with Her, the rapid fire round. And so it's a series of questions, and I just ask you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
So what's the one thing you cannot live without in your office?
A pencil.
A pencil? I thought you were going to say like coffee.
In my office, a pencil.
Okay. So you like to write with pencils.
I like to write everything down with a pencil. I have one right now.
All right. Very good. What is your favorite childhood book?
Stella Luna.
Stella Luna. Oh. Question number 3. What is, and I know you're a traveler, so what is the best meal you've ever had while traveling?
Italian food, pasta in Italy.
In Italy?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, of course.
Yes.
And your favorite word in another language, and maybe there's no equivalent English translation to that word. Maybe not. But what is your favorite word in another language?
Amor.
Love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And final rapid fire round question. If you could be fluent in any new language tomorrow, which would it be?
Punjabi, because some of my students speak that and I wish I can communicate with them.
Yeah. All right. So, Michelle, last question. What would you say is your biggest takeaway for our listeners from today's conversation?
So my biggest takeaway would be we are always learning. No matter when we feel that we have reached our potential or our limit, we haven't. We're always learning, and there's always something that we can give and show other people. I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. And I feel that when I think I've learned enough, I'm like, nope, I need to do something else. I want to learn a new challenge in life. So never give up, always continue learning, and always ask questions.
Thank you for that. Spoken like a true educator. I love it. And Michelle, it has been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank you again for being with us on this podcast. And you are in a unique position where you oversee the start, that crucial pre-K foundation, and the expansion of a student's world through language and culture. It's inspiring to see that leadership isn't just about managing a district, it's about widening the horizon for every child who walks through those doors. You've shown us that when we lead with purpose, we don't just fill roles, we expand possibilities. Thank you for listening to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast produced by Kean, a proud research university. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more information, visit kean.edu/Climb Higher with Her.